When my daughter came home from her grandmother's house, she wasn't the same child I kissed goodbye the day before. I didn't think much of it at first, kids get moody. But that silence, that long silence sitting in the back seat, hugging her stuffed bear like a shield, that was the beginning of something I never saw coming. My name is Hannah. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood with my 5-year-old daughter, Leia. I'm a teacher by profession, a widow by misfortune, and now, something I never imagined I'd become, a woman out for revenge. 3 years ago, my husband, Ethan, was killed in what the police ruled a tragic accident. A rainy night, a red light, a speeding truck. They told me he died on impact. Just like that, Leia and I were alone. Ethan's mother, Eleanor, was always cold toward me. Civil, yes, but never kind. She wore politeness like a mask. I always thought it was grief or pride, but maybe it was something darker. I didn't want to deny Leia the connection to her father's family, so I let her visit Eleanor now and then, short stays, never overnight. Until recently. A work retreat forced me to leave Leia for one night. My sister was away, my parents too far. So, with reluctance, I called Eleanor. She sounded almost pleased. Not warm, but eager. I've been waiting for this opportunity, she said, like it was a privilege long denied. The morning I dropped Leia off, I had a pit in my stomach. I ignored it. Motherhood is full of unnecessary worries. Or so I told myself. I packed Leia's favorite snacks, her bear, her storybook. I kissed her twice, maybe 3 times, before leaving. When I came to pick her up the next day, something in the air felt wrong. Eleanor barely said a word. Leia clung to me silent. No cheerful chatter. No mention of the pancakes or the garden or the barn cats. Just that bear, clutched to her chest like armor. It wasn't until we were halfway home that she whispered something that made my blood run cold. Grandma said I'm not supposed to tell you what I saw. My hands tightened on the wheel. I pulled over. What did you see, baby? Her eyes welled with tears. She was talking to a man in Daddy's room. She said, it's time she found out the truth. I called the police that night, but they found nothing. No break-in, no stranger on the property. Nothing but Eleanor's quiet smile when I confronted her. I think grief has made you paranoid, she said. Children imagine things, especially when their mothers put ideas in their heads. That's when I started digging. I went through Ethan's old things. Phone records, emails, passwords I hadn't dared touch since the funeral. And I found something, a series of encrypted files hidden deep in his cloud storage, protected under an old nickname only I would know. Inside were journals, voice notes, messages to himself. Ethan had been investigating something. Family land, financial records, a trust fund from Eleanor's late husband that mysteriously vanished after his death. He had doubts about his father's will, about how the farm was being managed. And he suspected his mother was hiding something. Weeks before his accident, he recorded a note. If anything happens to me, don't trust my mother. She's not who she says she is. I couldn't breathe. I went to the police again, this time with the files. Still, not enough to reopen anything officially. No physical evidence. Just suspicion. Convenient accidents don't get exhumed unless someone confesses or dies. So I waited. I sent Leia to stay with my sister. I bought a burner phone. I created a new email under a fake name and contacted Eleanor pretending to be a lawyer from a fictional legal firm, claiming interest in the land Ethan had left behind. I dangled words like lawsuit, audit, and fraud. She bit. She called me late one night, panicked. What the hell is this about legal action? She snapped. I told her I didn't know. That I'd been contacted too. That maybe someone was snooping. Watching. Her voice shook. Good. The next day, I anonymously sent the local news station an encrypted file containing Ethan's recordings. A week later, his story aired, Suspicious Death of Local Man Raises Questions. The segment ended with an open request for tips. I knew she'd panic. She always protected her name more than her family. It took less than a week for the right person to call in, an old employee who'd worked the farm decades ago. He confirmed what Ethan had suspected. There was a life insurance policy. A hidden one. And it didn't name Ethan, it named Eleanor. He also remembered the argument between Eleanor and her husband shortly before his mysterious fall from a second-story window. 2 husbands. 2 accidents. 2 unexplained deaths. They reopened the case. This time, they had enough. Eleanor was arrested on charges of fraud, obstruction, and suspicion of foul play. They're still investigating, but one thing's certain, she'll never see Leah again. And she'll never get the silence she counted on from me. I may have been a grieving widow, a quiet teacher, a tired single mom, but I am also a woman who will burn down the world before I let anyone hurt my daughter, especially someone who once called herself family. Moral? Don't underestimate a mother, especially one who's been quiet too long. Some wounds don't make you weaker, they sharpen you. And some revenge stories don't start with fury. They start with a whisper. From the mouth of a child. Months passed. The farmhouse sat empty, a for sale sign half blown over in the wind. I drove past it once, not out of curiosity, but closure. The police had cordoned off most of it, digging through paperwork, old computers, even parts of the barn where they suspected she kept the real records. Eleanor never talked, but she didn't need to. The lies unraveled themselves. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like walking through the ashes of a fire I hadn't started, only survived. Leah began to smile again. Slowly. Carefully. The shadows around her eyes softened. Her laughter returned in bursts, short and uncertain at first, like she was testing the air for danger. I let her take her time. Children carry more than we think. But they heal, too, if we let them. One evening, just after I tucked her in, I found something odd in her backpack. It was an envelope, old, yellowed, and sealed with a floral sticker I hadn't seen in years. It was addressed to me in Ethan's handwriting. For a moment, I couldn't move. Just stared at it, afraid that opening it would reopen everything I had tried to bury. I read it on the porch. Alone. Hannah, if you're reading this, I guess something went wrong. I don't know how to say this out loud, not yet, but I've been digging into some things that don't make sense. Things about my father. About the land. About my mother. I know how this sounds. But I need you to promise me something. If I'm not around anymore, if it looks like an accident, don't stop asking questions. Don't let her pull you in. You're the strongest person I know. You always have been. Protect Leah. And whatever you do, keep her away from my mother. I love you. Always. Ethan. I sat in silence for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let the wind wrap around me like an answer I had been waiting for too long to hear. He had known. And he had tried to shield us the only way he could. With truth hidden in places he prayed I'd one day find. The final act of revenge. Eleanor thought she could erase Ethan by silencing his voice, isolating his daughter, and controlling the narrative. But what she failed to understand was this. Grief may bend a woman. But motherhood straightens her spine. I didn't just expose her. I dismantled her slowly, legally, and irrevocably. Not out of hate, but out of love for the man she tried to erase. For the child she tried to deceive. For the silence she tried to force into my daughter's tiny, trembling mouth. You don't come after a child and expect the mother to stay kind. No, a mother will play the long game. She will wait in silence, gather evidence, build a case, and strike when the world is watching. Not for drama. Not for vengeance alone. But for justice. For safety. For peace. Today, Leah draws again. Her latest picture is of 3 people holding hands under a tree, me, her, and a man with yellow hair and a crooked smile. I ask her about it. That's Daddy, she says, like it's the most obvious thing in the world. And maybe it is. Because memory is its own kind of justice. And love, real love, never dies. It just waits, in quiet hearts, in brave whispers, in the courage it takes to tear apart a lie stitched in silence. This isn't just a revenge story. It's the story of a mother who chose truth over fear. And burned the past to light the way forward. The courtroom was quiet that morning, eerily quiet, like it was holding its breath. I sat in the front row, not to witness her downfall, but to make sure she saw mine. My strength. My presence. My refusal to disappear the way she had hoped I would. Eleanor entered in a gray suit, thinner than I remembered, her once proud posture now slightly wilted. She still carried that cold dignity like a weapon, even in handcuffs. Her eyes swept the room and landed on me. She didn't flinch. Neither did I. The prosecutor laid out everything: the falsified insurance documents, the forged signatures, the missing money from the estate, and Ethan's recordings. When they played his voice aloud in court, his calm, clear suspicion of her, there was a collective shift in the room. A wait. A pause. And then Leia's name came up. They described the manipulation. The attempts to scare her. The way Eleanor tried to convince a 5-year-old that secrets were safer than truth. And that's when I saw it. A flicker in Eleanor's expression. Shame? Regret? Or maybe just the realization that this time, the mask wouldn't save her. She didn't take the stand. Her lawyer claimed stress, declining health, irrelevance. But I took the stand. For Ethan. For Leia. For every unspoken warning in his journals. For every bedtime I had to lie awake, listening for nightmares I couldn't stop. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I told the truth in full color. And when I left the stand, I looked her straight in the eye. She looked away first. The verdict came back in less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Aftermath: what justice looks like. The news ran the story for weeks. Local widow uncovers dark family truth. Mother-in-law charged in multi-year fraud. Widow's evidence reopens suspicious death. People asked me for interviews. I declined every one. Justice isn't for the cameras. It's for the people who still have to live after the headlines fade. Eleanor was sentenced to prison. Minimum security, due to her age. But I didn't care where she ended up. She was out of our lives. And out of Leia's. That was enough. I sold our house and moved to a smaller place closer to my sister. A new school. A garden in the back. I planted a maple tree outside Leia's window, the kind Ethan always talked about planting someday. Every spring, it would bloom like clockwork, reminding us of the man who taught us that love wasn't loud, it was steady. I returned to teaching. I smiled more. Leia laughed more. She drew fewer pictures of monsters and more of playgrounds. Somewhere along the way, the ache softened. It didn't vanish. It just changed shape. The final entry. I kept one of Ethan's notebooks. The leather-bound one he wrote in with his real handwriting, the one that didn't just hold suspicions, but dreams. Plans for trips we never took. Projects for the house. Letters he'd never mailed. He once wrote, "Hannah will know what to do, even if I'm gone." He was right. I didn't know what to do. I protected our daughter. I unearthed the truth. I made sure his death didn't get buried with the lies. And when I look at our lives now, simple, safe, and full of gentle hope, I know that revenge wasn't about anger. It was about restoration. Making the broken things whole. Clearing the rot from the roots so something new could grow. The real ending? This isn't a story of fury. It's a story of fire turned into light. Of a widow who turned her grief into justice. Of a daughter who spoke the truth no one else dared say. And of a woman who, when given a choice between fear and courage, chose to fight quietly. Until the silence shattered. And the world finally heard her roar.